time? Thank you. So welcome everybody. Once again, thank you for waiting. Thank you for being patient. And my name is Revital Chitayat. I am a mentor and a teacher. I work in Israel. I work internationally, and I teach people mainly how to manifest their fullest potential. I allow them to discover their purpose, to live through their passions, to experience what it means to be connected to intuition. And part of the thing that I do, and I think it's going to be related to our talk today, is I have a very deep interest in the voices in our head, in the way we speak to ourselves, in the way we manage our inner dialogue, and in all the things that keep us from being the greatest version of who we're meant to be. So this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about inner and outer dialogue, but in a very, very interesting perspective. And luckily I started talking because my computer has finally decided to join in. So I'm going to join in from a much better camera. Hold on a second. Let's see if it works. Followed me for most of my adult years, but probably deep into childhood. We're going to explore the concept of love thy neighbor. And it's a you know, as I mentioned in the posts and in the preparation for the call, we're talking about 3 simple words. And for me, these 3 simple words hold so much meaning within them that this is where I'd like to take us today, to explore what it means to love thy neighbor, to explore why we challenge it, why we oppose it, why it's challenging for us, and why I perceive this concept and these 3 words to be a highly powerful self-growth tool. This is how I treat it. This is how I use it. And this is what I'd like to do today in our meeting. My intention is to leave us all with a little bit more expansion, with a little bit more ability to love our neighbor and love ourselves. And what I'm going to do is take you through a little meditation, exploring what it means to consider ourselves through the parts of us. Hopefully we're going to have time to do a little demo. And in the end, we're going to wrap it up with another guided breath meditation in order to see the movement, to see how we've expanded, to see what's changed, and to explore the possibility of what happens when we are able to love ourselves as we love our neighbors, and love our neighbors as we love ourselves. So before we start, before we begin, and Janaki, you know, I'm going to try to enter because I can see the Zoom is off. Let's see if I can enter the meeting. Let's see if it allows me. So as we're exploring, what I'd like to invite all of us, including myself, is to ground ourselves and to go back to the breath, just to allow ourselves for a moment to breathe. And while we're breathing, so just we all notice the chitter chatter in our minds. Notice what's going on, where our thoughts are going, where our thoughts are taking us. Regulating the breath, the in and the out. Noticing, now that we're into conscious breathing, what is our habit? Are we more used to taking air in, to exhaling? And as we breathe, as we slowly enjoy a conscious breath, I want us to even begin counting our breath, slowing down to breathing in to the count of 5 and breathing out to the count of 5. So just gently, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the inhale, and again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the exhale. And continue counting. We'll do another 2 of these breaths as I remind you to gently lower the volume of your mind. Notice what you're noticing, but keep focusing on the counting. Notice how the body relaxes. Notice what happens to the mind when we're able to gently, slowly remind ourselves to breathe. What I'd like to do now, into this quiet, into this space, is to invite a memory, a person, a thing, a pet, a place, something that is connected to a sense of love. It doesn't have to be, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Something that allows you to experience that sense of love. And I just want you to raise the volume of that experience. Just allow that frequency, that feeling, for a moment to be fully present in your body. And simply notice what happens to your body, what happens to the quality of your thoughts and feelings. You can even increase it a little more in order to just be that feeling, be love, as much as possible. And if there is any inner dialogue following all of this, notice that as well. And as we take another deep, generous breath, I'd like to ask us all to put this aside. And now we're going to imagine, allow into our consciousness something, someone, whether it's a person, a memory, a place, an animal, a symbol, anything else that is connected to the opposite emotions, whether it's hate, loathing, something or someone that connects you to that feeling. Again, I'm reminding you of the gentle breathing as we allow this emotion to be present, as we allow ourselves to just increase the volume and to notice what happens. Once again, notice the quality of our thoughts, the quality of what is happening in the body, and raise the volume a little bit more. Allow it to be present. And we're going to slowly release this as well. And return back to the breath. Back to the breath, back to the heart. And once again, breathing deeply. Noticing both of these emotions. Noticing them from a place that's in the center, it's heart connected. Two frequencies. And as we slowly breathe through them, I'd like to invite all of us back into the present, into the room, back to our circle. And once again, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for exploring the two extremes which we're going to be talking about today. I'd also like to thank the God of Zoom, which allowed us to now hold this session properly. I don't take anything for granted. And we're going to start talking about the meaning of this lovely expression. It is present in both the Old Testament, the New Testament. Love thy neighbor is an idea that is present universally. When I was looking to see where it began, it exists over all religions. So there's a core idea that is very useful for us. And this is what we're going to explore today. I thought it was very amusing before all of this happened. I woke up this morning, and last night there was a little message in our building WhatsApp group. One of the neighbors said, "Good morning, good evening. Tomorrow we are starting renovation. Thank you for your consideration." And all of us wished her good luck. And 7 o'clock this morning, it stopped about half an hour ago. There have been I don't know, they're called in Hebrew, the air hammers and drilling and knocking and banging. And I had to consciously practice loving my neighbor today. So I thought it was very amusing that that I had a good dose of loving my neighbor this morning as a beginning towards this session. What I'd like to start with is, with that experience that we had now in the breathing. I want to look at the word love, because love is one of the most potent, powerful, and very personal words. We each have our own interpretation of what love means. And it's also a frequency. So what I'd like to do is for a moment, take love out of its very personal, very private, sometimes very charged meaning, and we're going to take it as a bit of a higher idea, almost as a frequency, something that we connect in a more abstract way. So detach it from a particular person, even though we're going to be playing with it that way. And this is why I consider this sentence as a self-growth tool. Because what we're going to be doing is playing with an attachment to a particular person or thing, but also using it in order to see where it meets us. So what I'd like to do now is ask you to think of a person. It could be someone or something, be it something that came up in the meditation, could be something else, but something or someone that is connected to that experience of love. And what I'd like to do is for you to write 3 qualities, traits, characteristics, talents, 3 things that you love about that person, memory, place, pet, whatever comes to mind that is connected to love. And if you feel comfortable sharing it in the chat, that would be extremely useful. 3 things that are connected to that experience of someone that you love and what you love about them.
Does anybody feel like sharing in the chat? That would be lovely. Not whatever you're comfortable with. So Nilima, thank you. The preciousness of their being. Now, as soon as you have those things, 3 qualities, 3 points that we appreciate about that person. Anybody else cares to put it in the chat? That'd be wonderful.
Encounter 4.
And that sense, that feeling of the preciousness of being, it could be generosity, it could be kindness, it
Now
could
serving
be
Nick. 0010
leadership skills, it could be
Encounter 12.
that she chose me as her mom. Just expand and see what are those things.
Now,
once you have them, once you have those 3 things, what I'd like to ask is for you to go now to the other extreme, to that person, memory, pet, place, whatever it is that you hate, that you loathe. And I'd like you to write 3 things that you absolutely hate about that thing, that person. 3 things that you're critical about, that you're angry about, that you've criticized for many years. And as an aside, since we're all in the process of self-development, and there's an idea that spiritual people don't feel these emotions anymore, I would like to invite you to enjoy them and for a moment to just relax, no judgment, into the things that we hate. So we have my dogs for what they make me experience. We're still in the love, and hate make me feel limited, feel tight in my body and breath. Excellent. Because we're here to expand, the nastier, the more contracted, the critical, as critical as possible as we can get, enjoy. We don't often give ourselves complete freedom to just freely hate without feeling critical. So give it a go. 3 things that you really hate about that person that you hate anyway. And just write them down. Stubbornness, Nilima, thank you so much. And it's been a pleasure in making others inconvenienced. Oh, I love that. And unreasonable. Somebody who is absolutely unreasonable. So thank you. It's important to write these things down because we want to notice. We want to notice where these things, how these things are there in order for us to expand. So I was thinking how one of the reasons that we love, or used to love, Western movies is because there was something about the setting of a Western and TV in the more innocent stages, where it was really clear who was good and who was bad, who was the hero and who was the villain, who was black and who was white, and it was clear where our compassion, where our identification was going to lie. We were with the good guys, but our life is so much more complex than that. And my work, what I do, evolves around the concept that not only have we ceased, if we ever lived, but we've ceased to live in that kind of reality. We're all reflections. So we're all here in order to be the most colorful options of who we are. And the people that I attract in my life, the people who join me, whether it's for a moment or for a lifetime, somebody that I meet or the family that I chose to be born into, are completely intentional. I chose them once upon a time, and I chose them for my growth and expansion. One of the quotes that I heard once upon a time ago and had a great impact on my life was when Byron Katie said that life doesn't happen to me, it happens for me. And I remember taking that idea and thinking, so people don't happen to me, people happen for me as well. And from that point on, I started exploring how people are here to reflect back to me things that I'm not able to see in myself. How people show up in me things that are in my blind spots, that are out of my ability to experience my own self. And it became the course of my exploration, that became the core of my work, of what I do. It became a source of huge fascination to begin to see people, not only for who they are, of course, but also, and more importantly, how they become reflections of me. I have I'll tell you the story soon. I'd like to introduce you to the tool that I most like using, sitting with headphones that are in my telephone, and this is empty, which is called voice dialogue. And voice dialogue is going to be very useful because it's going to allow us to see the reflections that we are in a very, very powerful light. So voice dialogue is a tool that was created by two psychologists in the 70s, Dr. Hal and Sidra Stoner. And the core concept is that I'm not a single self, but rather I'm a collection of emotions, of feelings, thoughts, beliefs, of voices, the voices in my head, the things that govern and manage me throughout the day. And rather than calling them the voices in my head, they become humanized. They become parts of me. So instead of me being critical or judgmental or kind, I have a part of me that's kind, a part of me that's judgmental, a part that's critical. And the more I explore, the more I'm able to see myself for the full scope that I am, the many parts of me. Now, when I discovered this tool, and this is almost 15 years ago, I fell in love with it because it allowed me to see myself in a much broader spectrum. It allowed me to experience myself not as a very narrow concept, this is who I am, but rather something that's ever expanding. I started on an adventure hunt to see which parts of me I'm familiar with and which parts of me I'm so unaware of that my habit is not only to not see in me, is to reflect onto others. So a really good way to start this exploration is to tell you a little story about myself. When I was young, and I think I saw her before, I think I have the honor and privilege of having my mom here on the phone. I know she was here, but yes, she is. So, so my mom is on the phone, and she will vouch for this. When I was 4, we left Israel and moved to the States. My father was going to study there, and the whole family moved with him. And I found myself 2 minutes ago, a very confident little girl in a very aggressive kindergarten where I knew I had to struggle for everything and I had to use whatever necessary in order to get what I wanted, dropped in an English-speaking environment without the language to express what I want, without the ability to say what I need, and with tools from a very different background. A couple of months into the school year, the headmistress called my parents and told them that there was a problem. I didn't really fit the environment. And unless something changed, she wasn't sure that I could continue in the kindergarten. Now, I wasn't privy to this conversation. I had no idea, but something in me sensed that my existence within the group, within the tribe, was threatened. And something changed. Another strategy came into place, another way to express myself came into action. And at the end of that year, the same headmistress called my parents and later also gave me a report, and I still have that report saying that never in the 30 years that she's been with children has she seen such an exciting, such a dramatic, such a meaningful change in a little girl. Little Revital is sweet, is caring, is compassionate. She cares for others. She's helpful. She has completely changed. It is a joy to be with her. And it's an extraordinary miracle how this transition came to be. This change is what helped me to survive in my environment, in this tribe. And the change in my language and the voice dialogue sense means that when I realized that the strategy of a scavenger, of a very wild and passionate little girl wasn't working, I created new parts. One of them was the good girl. I learned that in order to survive, I would bring the good girl into play, into action. And I was good, I was kind, and I belonged. With this good girl, I was able to find my place, to create meaning, to create connections, to ensure that I was loved. With her came one of my favorite parts. It gets a lot of bad PR, but there was the pleaser. There was a part that could enter a room, scan it with almost superpower abilities, and see what was necessary, what people needed, what was called for, and to be able to give it to them often before they even knew they wanted it. So these two parts became not only existential for my survival, they were the parts that I continued to practice for many, many years. They helped me to remain meaningful in different settings, to know how to operate, to feel like I belonged, to feel like I was seen, heard, understood. Now, this means that these two are amongst a group of parts of me that I practiced for many years. Not me, but parts of me that became very familiar with how to run reality, with how to maintain, how to govern my day-to-day life. And again, not me, parts of me, as we all have. And I wonder if any of you are familiar with either one of these or others as I speak, but how interesting it is to try to begin to see that we have within us almost like what I like to call a board of directors, a group of particular parts that we're very familiar with. There's some that are generic, like the inner doubter, that part, that voice in our head that says, are you sure? Are you sure that this is going okay? Are you sure that this is, do you know what you're doing? Are you sure? The inner critic, that voice in our head that is activated and says, no, this isn't good enough. You didn't do it properly, but why did you say that? Why didn't you think of saying this and this? We all have the judge, the one that looks outside and sees those that behave that way. I would never do that, but they do. Most of us have an inner, well, obviously inner children, an inner victim, an inner perpetrator. We all have these parts that are generic, and then each of us has unique flavors of who we are. So part of my board of directors includes a good girl, a pleaser. I have a very active perfectionist that makes me double check and then triple check and then read just one more time because maybe there's one more spelling mistake, and just hold on a second before you push that post button because maybe there's something that you need to fix. Some of us have the cynic, which is a great defense mechanism, or the joker. These are the parts of us, the parts that create that initial group of very active, very familiar parts that more often than not we call me. This is who I am. Now, how interesting it is when we're starting to play with these concepts of what we love and what we hate or loathe, to see that we're bringing a bit of movement into this story, because the parts that we love are more often than not the parts that we're familiar with, the parts that are comfortable for us to see. So now that I've given this little intro, I wonder if you can look at the list that you created and start seeing how some of these things are interesting. Are they familiar for me? Are they not? Are they strange? Are they not? What I'd like to do now is to take our little exercise with love and hate one step further and swap our two centers. What do I mean? I'd like us to look at that entity of love, that person, that memory, our pet, the place, that whatever it is that is connected to a sense of love. And I'd like you to find 3 things that you don't like about it, or you hate about it. 3 things about this person. It could be things that make you uncomfortable, things that you wish to avoid, but in the name of love, you don't really see. Things about this person or place or thing or pet that you don't like, even though you love them. And once again, if you'd like to put them in the chat, that would be wonderful. But certainly write them down for yourself. I remember that it was very, very interesting to realize how it was somebody that I love, like one of my children, which is absolute and unconditional love, to be able for a moment to see those little things that maybe I don't like so much. So just see where this lies. 3 things in the person or place or pet that you don't like. And we're going to move to the other side. That entity that you hate, whether it's a person, a memory, a place, a pet, something else. I'd like you to explore 3 things that you either love, or if you can't find, on that level, it could be things that you appreciate, that you respect, that you admire. It's in that thing that you hate. And make a list. So now we should have a list of 5 to 6 things on each part. 5 to 6 things, 3, 4, 5 things that you love from both. 3 to 6 things that you hate from both. I want you to explore this list for a minute. Just scan it for a second and begin to notice which of the things that you wrote down are very familiar. Which of the things are you quite happy to say, I can actually see this in me. This is certainly a part of me. And again, I'm reminding you that my initial perception is that we are reflections. So whatever it is that I see outside is always a reflection of something in me. So we're going with the things that feel familiar. And now we're also exploring the things that don't. The things that we hate about other people. The things that make us uncomfortable. the things that if we could just fix them, if they could just release that one thing, they would be perfect. But with that, I'm not like that. I don't have that quality. I don't behave that way. And just to notice that, once again, notice that if life doesn't happen to me and people don't happen to me, they happen for me, what is possible if this is a reflection of parts of me that I'm unable to see in myself? It could be somebody reflecting back to me a strength, a gift, an ability in myself that I'm less familiar with. And then all that's left to do is just to deeply enjoy it. This is a part of you that's resonating off of someone else. But in the same breath, what about the things, that other list, the things that you hate about others? What happens when we begin to notice them in ourselves? And it gets tricky because this is the way, the sort of backdoor way to begin to notice our repressed parts, our disowned parts, our unfamiliar parts, the parts that we're so unable to notice in ourselves that we place them on someone else. I often say that one of the easy ways around this is just to marry them. So how often am I with a partner and I can just dump on him or her those parts in me that, of course, I wouldn't be, I don't know, Miguel, I'll just use your list because it's, before my eyes. Of course, I'm not stubborn. Of course, I'm not, I don't inconvenience others. And of course, I am not unreasonable. It could go on and on. Of course, I'm not impatient. Of course, I'm not stingy. Of course, I'm not angry. Of course, I'm not. He or she is. I'm not. And I'm reminding us that we are in the exploration of that idea of love thy neighbor as thyself. So what an opportunity to see that this sentence that I collected, and I don't even know why it caught my mind at a very young age, but my initial understanding of this sentence is the shortcut version. And it's interesting because there's a shortcut version in English and in Hebrew. And the shortcut is love thy neighbor. Ve'ahavta l'reacha. Literally, the short version. Now, love thy neighbor with a good girl part and a pleaser part, easy. I practiced loving my neighbor. I practiced being kind and being loving. I practiced doing good. I practiced giving and being generous. I practiced that under the desire to know what it means to love thy neighbor. But I forgot that little addition, which I believe that we all forget, and which makes this sentence so perfect. Love thy neighbor as thyself. So in order to love my neighbor, I need to know how to love myself. And in order to love myself, I need my neighbor, whether it's my neighbor who's driving all morning, my partner, my children, my siblings, my parents, my friends, my boss, my colleagues, the person that cuts me when I'm driving down the highway. I need my neighbors in order to reflect back to me those parts in myself which I'm unable to see, which I resist seeing, which I've disowned, which I've repressed long ago. And the only way that I can see them is see them reflected thanks to my neighbor. It's such an interesting opportunity because it makes us uncomfortable. I'd rather see the beautiful version of me. I'd rather see the beautiful options, the familiar ones. Even the parts of me that I don't like, I've still come to accept on some level. But what happens when I'm called to expand on that list that makes me hugely uncomfortable? So I'd like to tell you another story. And it's a story that reflects for me that movement that I did and that I now invite others to do, from classifying, categorizing, westernizing the parts in me. Some are good, some are bad. The good ones I like, and the bad ones I'd rather not see and I'd put on other people. Moving away from that into an opportunity to see endless colors or flavors or scents, to see the full picture without saying, I don't like yellow, I love red, but I'm not going to put yellow in any painting because I hate yellow. Yellow is for them. I don't like the smell of vanilla. I love a lot of other smells, but I'm not going to let vanilla into my existence because it's bad. What happens when I'm able to expand the endless colors, flavors, textures, parts that are me in order to become more of who I am? So as a young mother, my now 22-and-a-half-year-old was then 5. She was in a kindergarten. She was a very feisty little girl, and she had a friend that I considered a bad influence. And along with this friend, I remember one day I received a call from her teacher, and her teacher said, we have a little problem because your daughter and her friend went into one of the not lockers, but little boxes. They each had a little box in the kindergarten, and they stole chewing gum from one of the children. And when I confronted them, as they were chewing the chewing gum, they said, no, we didn't take it. And I could feel, I was listening to the teacher, and I was ready to faint. This was my perfect child. And I was just told that my 4-year-old was, and this is my thinking, a thief and a liar. And I remember putting the phone down, and I literally felt that I was going to faint. I didn't know how to handle because I hate liars. I hate liars. I believe in the truth. I believe in the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I don't lie, I said to myself, and certainly I don't steal. And here I have this 4-year-old that just, the 5-year-old that just stole something and lied about it. And I remember calling a friend of mine, sobbing, saying to her, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. My daughter is a liar. She's a thief. And she held the phone and said, Revital, we're talking about bazooka, right? I said, yeah, but you don't understand. She's a liar. She lied. That was around the period when I started doing my inner work, when I started exploring what it meant, when I take the responsibility of her being something and I bring it back to me and notice where it meets me. And I remember the first time when I met my inner liar, and I have a secret in case you haven't understood already. All of us have an inner liar. All of us have an inner thief. All of us have inner everything. And when I take that inner liar out of a context of being good or bad, when it's just another part of me, when I stopped to see what it is, what is that energy, I discovered that it was hugely creative, that within the liar, there was an ability to see a situation, to create a web, to create a creative reality in which to give me an exit door out of something, in order to create a better story, a better option of what really is. This inner liar suddenly opened up to something that I wasn't expecting. It was so potent. It was so creative. It was so charming. I remember it being useful because after I came to peace with the fact that I have an inner liar, after I began to notice those little points in my life where I lie to myself, where I lie to other people, those places where I tell myself, tomorrow I'm going to start the diet. And I know that tomorrow I'm not going to start the diet. Where I tell myself, tomorrow I'm going to, these are all my embarrassments. Tomorrow I'm going to start gym. I am going to go to gym tomorrow. I'm ready. But something in me knows it's not going to happen. The inner liar that says, yeah, I'm 5 minutes away when I know I'm stuck in traffic and it's going to take at least 20 minutes. So many places where I lie to myself, including, and this is the more hurtful places, those places where I tell myself how unsuccessful, how untalented, how not enough I am. A version of a lie, a version of a fear-driven habit, which we all practice. So when I made peace with that liar, I could then meet my child, now 12, when I discovered, thanks to Instagram, that she had, rather than gone to sleep at friends, gone out, celebrated, took pictures of themselves on selfies, and once in a while they put up pictures and you think, don't they know that somebody somewhere is going to see this? And the mother of one of the other girls said, do you know that at 6 o'clock in the morning, our two girls were sitting outside with a bunch of friends when they told us they were going to be sleeping over somewhere. I remember my child coming home and I breathed and I said to her, well, first I gave her the opportunity to tell me what happened, but she didn't. And I said, I'm going to separate this into two. The first part is to tell you how I am in awe of the stories that you wove. You did a fabulous job. I love the creativity. I think it is incredible how you managed to tell me a story and I believed it. And I'm putting that aside and I'm also telling you it's not cool. Between us, we should have an openness. And while I respect the need to lie, I would rather have an open conversation. And I think that point in our relationship was the point where a connection between us began that to this day is deeply open, very intimate, very honest, and with very little need to lie, because that part doesn't feel like it needs to weave a web of anything. So once I accepted it, once I stopped resisting it, once I stopped fighting with something or for something, I just allowed it to be. I loved my neighbor, my baby girl, as myself. And something very deep, emotional, can shift when I allow myself to love myself that much that I can love myself for the liar that I am, for the angry person that I am, for the stingy person that I am, for the aggressive part that I am. It means that I allow myself to expand who I am. And when I love myself that much more, only then can I truly love my neighbor. So what I'd like to ask, and I think we have enough time to do a tiny bit of playfulness, is looking at your lists, especially that list of things that you hate, whether it's in people that you love or people that you hate. Would somebody like to do a very short demo with what it feels like to meet a part of you and to trust me that we have everything within us, and see what it means to meet a part of me that up until now I'm used to either placing on someone else, seeing it out there, it's them, it's not me, or unable to find it in myself. So I wonder if there's anyone that feels like doing Just a very short demo. You can just raise your hand and I can see, or write in the chat. It's fun, I promise you. No, no one? Okay, so I will just talk.
Can you
about it.
please repeat the
Somebody changes their
exercise?
mind, let me know. What I was going to do in the demo is to show you what happens when I allow a part of me to show up. When I allow a part of me that up until a moment ago, either I didn't believe I had, I didn't like, I was ashamed of, I wasn't proud of. One of the best examples is we can go with violence. Violent people. I don't like violent people. That other person, that memory, that thing is violent or aggressive. It has that energy. If only they would calm down, it would be so much easier. And it's really interesting to notice that when I ask about why it's so bad, what's so bad about being violent, about being overly angry, being eruptive. I think we would all agree. You can add in the chat if you have any judgmental or critical words about violent people, aggressive people. It could be that they are unpredictable, that they, like an elephant in a china shop. They walk in and they do a lot of damage. It could be that they wreak havoc, and then you have to pick up the pieces. It could be that you have to be really careful around them. You don't want to rouse that potential. It could be the fear that it invokes, that feeling of breathlessness, that walking on eggshells. Just to notice what happens around the quality of a trait, and it could be whatever it is that's on your list. But the first step before I meet a part, especially if it's something that I either can't find in myself or I don't want to. I don't want to believe that I have this quality in me, is to first allow all the judgment to be present. To allow myself to say all the things that I believe about that trait. So if you feel like taking a few minutes and choosing one while I speak, noticing around that thing that you mentioned, what comes up. And you can feel free to be as judgmental as you possibly can, because it's there. It's part of the frequency around it. Now, once we release ourselves of that energy, once I move that aside and allow aggression or the aggressor or the violent part or whatever it is that this part calls itself, I allow it to be, and I invite it and I say, okay, aggressor or violent part, what is your job? What is your role? It is always, always so surprising to discover that this part, and it's very individual, of course, so I'm going to give it a generic example, but this part is often related to our unrealized borders, our inner limits. It's a part that makes sure that people don't overstep our boundaries. Of a part like this, when it's repressed, often has to wait until another part, the part that's used to swallowing and breathing and accepting and transmuting and holding space and doing all those lovely spiritual things that we do, has had enough. And that's when this part comes in and puts down the line and loses its temper and breaks whatever needs to be broken in order to say, that's it. You've reached the red line. You've reached my limit. That part also holds within it a huge amount of energy. Just think what happens to your body when you feel angry, when you feel violent, not necessarily when you exercise it, but just that feeling, just that emotion, how much energy it has, how much potency, how much power. When we give up on that aggressor, when we give up, when we repress or disown that anger, we're also disowning that part of our potency, of our power, of our ability to define clear borders, of our ability to freely and easily say what we want and what we don't want, where I end and you begin. What a powerful part to have, accessible. I don't need to let it erupt. I don't need to wait until it goes out of control. But bringing it back from the basement, bringing it back from Siberia or wherever we hid it, and saying this is also a part of me. This is that much more expansion. Not my partner, not my children, not my siblings or parents or friends. I have a part that is violent. It's just another flavor of who I am. It's just another expression of the fullness of me. And when I stop fighting it, when I stop labeling it as according to what I believe it is, and I just allow it to be yet another potential of who I am, I regain so much power. Or, whatever it is with whatever part it is, with the liar, I regained, first of all, regained a sense of quiet. Oh, I'm a liar. I don't have to fight against those liars outside. I have an inner liar. It's okay. I'm imperfect and I love my imperfectness. With the aggressor, when it just is, I can use the energy. I don't have to blow up, but I can use that energy. And when that energy is present, my border, my limits are clear without having to say anything. People don't have to reach and cross over my red lines because there's something there that's already present. It allows me to be more of who I am. And as I told you in the beginning, my role, my job is to help people manifest their fullest potential. This is part of our potential. And when the moment I stop being afraid or deterrent, critical, judgmental around this part, whatever part that is for you, when I can allow it to be there, I don't have to act upon it. That I'm not busy repressing my energy, pretending that this is not a part of me. I stop fighting it when I meet it on the outside. So when I meet somebody who is violent, who I perceive to be violent, who I perceive to be aggressive, rather than go to my usual strategies, whether it's recoil, shut down, fight back, disappear, appease, whatever it is that I'm used to doing. If I just be there, meet that frequency, recognize it, know what it is for me. Oh, there's a limit here, there's a border here. Maybe I'm unaware of it. Maybe this person is reflecting back to me something that I'm not seeing. When I remember to love myself, I'm able to then love my neighbor. And if love at that particular moment is too big a word, at that moment I can meet my neighbor, name my neighbor, whoever it is, whether it's my child, my siblings, my parents, my extended family, my friends, my colleagues, my boss, somebody else. I can meet them on a completely different level. I can meet them with an open heart. I can accept them. I can respect them. I can see them. And I have used them in order to see myself, in order to see, experience, regain, reclaim a part of me. So for me, the first step of this beautiful sentence, love thy neighbor, begins with a step called love thy step, but love thyself. And in order to love myself, I can't stop at loving only what I know, only what I'm familiar and comfortable with, because that is conditional love. It means that when something that is on the other side, those repressed and disowned emotions, those bad things about me, when they rise up, I stop loving myself. So when I'm able to fully accept myself and love more and more of the parts of me, I learn to love myself unconditionally. And the only way that I'm able to do that is when I use my neighbors to reflect back to me the parts that I cannot see in myself. So by learning to love more and more of who I am, I'm able to love more and more of who they are, because they are merely a reflection of the same thing. You know, in Hebrew, there's a little reminder in the actual wording. The word neighbor in Hebrew is actually friend. Ve'ahavta, love. Lere'acha, your friend. Kamocha, as yourself. Re'acha, in the root, has two meanings. It's both friend, and it's both the root of the word bad or evil. And it's a little reminder that in order to fully love myself, in order to fully love my neighbor, I need to learn to love those bad parts, those evil parts, those parts where I'll go out in the streets to fight against. I will do outrageous things because I believe that in the name of something, that is an evil. It's out there, not me, and I need to do something about it. I need to eradicate it. I need to fight it. I need to combat it. I feel justified because it's bad. When I learn that I am that full spectrum, something shifts, something changes, because when I first take the time to find it in myself, all that energy to fight it out in the world goes down, and something else opens up, an ability to just accept things, to see them with curiosity, to see them with a different set of eyes, and to accept them. When I accept them, and I'm able to love my neighbor as myself, so many walls are able to just melt. So many struggles, so many fights, so many challenges, so many wars can give way to something else, because we are merely reflections of each other. So in order to experience this, what I'd like to do is take us back again to where we started, back again to the breath. I'd like to invite you again to just close your eyes. And with all of this information, just take the time to breathe and allow it to be. Once again, notice your breath. Notice if that habit of inhaling or exhaling a little bit longer, of either giving to yourself or giving to others, is balanced out. And once again, you can go back to counting 5. 5 counts for an inhale and 5 counts for the exhale. Gently returning to a conscious breath, to a quiet breath, to a very aware breath. And how interesting it is as you begin to tune into that breath, to a deeper, more generous breath, to a breath that is more loving to who you are, to notice the change in quality of our thoughts, our emotions. As you tune down any noise from the outside world, I'd like you to notice these many parts that are present right now on the paper, maybe in your consciousness. There should be about 6 to 12 different parts of you that are now present, that are now calling for attention. Notice the ones that are easy for you to accept, admire, and love. So imagine if you can begin to see them as parts of you, whether you recognize them in yourself now or not. And also begin to notice those other parts, the ones that you were maybe unfamiliar with considering as your own parts, parts that you were used to hating, strongly disliking, maybe even loathing in others. And allowing them to be, beginning to notice what their potential is, what is possible when you reclaim their energy, their presence, their power in your life. What could they offer you? A good way to imagine this is to see one of those mirror rooms that we used to visit in the circus. The room where you're standing in the center, and all around you are a variety of expressions of who you are. Not good, not bad, just reflections of the full potential of who you are. And as you turn around in this room of mirrors, begin to see how rich, how colorful, how vibrant it is. As I begin to expand into more and more of who I am, which allows others to be more and more of who they are. And as we stand there in this hall of mirrors, I'd like to invite you for a moment of gratitude. It's a deep breath. The gratitude of those infinite parts of who you are. Just an opportunity to look around, to see these parts, to notice the ones that you're unfamiliar with, and to express an inner gratitude for the richness that they offer your life. Love thy neighbor as thyself. What an opportunity to not only have our own reflections in this hall of mirrors, but the reflections of people around us. So I'd like to slowly ask you, as you go back to the breath, to gently feel yourself back in your chair, in your space and back here with us. And I left a little bit of time for questions, but I'd like to leave us with a reminder that this sentence, this perfect concept, this idea that we are in constant reciprocity, I said that right, opens up for something very profound. It means that we need each other in order to experience more fully who we are. It means that we are connected. Our need for reflection means that in order for me to be more of who I am, I invite people to reflect not only the good and the expansive and the powerful, but also the sides of me that I need to come in to make peace with. The more that we understand this intricacy of connection, the more ridiculous the idea of separation becomes, because it's a constant interplay of who we are for each other. And the more we are for each other, the more we remember to be for ourselves. So I leave you with this thought, with a reminder to begin an excavation hunt, to start collecting those parts that up until now you've been used to dumping on other people. It's them, it's not me, it's who he is, it's what she does, I don't act that way. And to stop for a minute and say, wait a minute, but what if I have a part like that? What if there's something in me that does exactly that, whether to others or to myself? What would happen if I stopped in order to meet it, in order to understand it, in order to accept and possibly love it? How much freedom would that offer to my life? So I thank you so much. I thank you for being patient in the beginning. I thank you for being present here. And I thank you for the opportunity to share something which is very deep to my heart on this quite exceptional seminar. And if there's any questions, this is a wonderful time. I'm here to answer. It's something that I'm deeply passionate about. So Janaki, I think I'll stay a couple, a minute or two longer for questions, but I think we can end the recording. And with that, I'll say thank you to you for being such a wonderful support. And thank you again to Nilima for hosting this incredible event. And I think I can end the recording.
Thank you so much.